This episode has been brought to you by Fornos Law Firm, devoted to optimizing your legal results at fornoslaw.com.
Welcome to Push Room, where we talk about disability news, culture, interviews, and more. I'm Ray Pizarro.
I'm Richard Bell.
We'd like to thank our audience once again for tuning in and bringing you guys the latest and greatest information regarding disabilities and other important things that affect our lives. Today on the show, we have a very special guest that's going to be talking about disaster awareness. It's something that we all need to work on being prepared for, and I'm a guilty one that I'm not, and I should be, but that's why we brought him in. We want to welcome Earl Massey, founder, CEO of Disaster Awareness Project. Welcome.
Thank you. I want to thank you, Ray, and Richard, and the guys who are working the technical aspects of this podcast in the background. Thank you for this opportunity to bring some life-saving information to everyone.
All right. So let's get into it, because I know there's a lot to cover. I know in most regions of the world, there's different disasters that you should be prepared for. For instance, there's some tsunamis or hurricanes, tornadoes. But since we're in Southern California, I think our focus will be earthquakes. So can you give us a little insight on what you know about earthquakes?
Sure. And you're exactly right. Nowadays, the disasters take so many different forms, everything from weather phenomena to war, through terrorist threats, through spread of diseases. And we're seeing more increase in the severity of not only the weather, but also earthquakes. They're happening more frequently with more intensity. I think that one of the reasons that people do not understand or prepare for earthquakes is because they don't have a baseline knowledge of what's going to happen. My company or my organization, Disaster Awareness Project, conducts seminars as well as it sells preparedness products to help sustain lives. But we provide that baseline knowledge so that people will have a clearer understanding of what to expect and what it's going to be like. We provide pictures, we provide videos in 2 different seminars. And you're right, Richard, what you were saying. There's way too much information to be contained in just this podcast, but we'll try to summarize things as best we can. Preparedness will extend your life, save your family's lives in any one of these disasters. But the focus of earthquakes is something that I'm familiar with. When I was around 12 or 13 years old, we were in the earthquake in Anchorage, Alaska, in 1964. It hit March 27th. This earthquake was the second greatest earthquake recorded in the history of human beings. It was a 9.2. It shook the earthquake itself lasted 4 minutes, but shook for an additional 7 minutes. And the destruction that it left was unimaginable. It was like your worst nightmare.
Yeah.
No electricity for months, no running water, no lights at night, no gas lines. There was fires, explosions. The sound of the earthquake itself was just a tremendous sound, and it raised the earth in some areas up to 30 to 40 feet.
Oh, my goodness.
We lived in a second-story apartment where you could see directly across into the other apartment, into its living room, and vice versa. They could see into ours. We were on the ground, and all of a sudden, as we were on the ground, I remember looking out the window, and the ground was level with the second-story window. And then all you saw was sky. And then the ground appeared again, and you could see the cars that were parked in the parking lot dancing around. It was impossible to stand. The refrigerator door opened up, and articles from pictures to little knickknacks were hurled across the room as if somebody was throwing them with tremendous force and shattered on the other end. Refrigerator door opened up. Eggs, milk, everything flew across maybe 10 or 15 feet and hit the wall, and they literally just exploded with force.
Wow.
You couldn't stand.
Mhm.
And after it was over, I mean, you're being traumatized when this is going on, and your mind
Absolutely.
is trying to grasp as to what's happening.
Mhm.
And when you see the ground, even with the second story window, it's really, really you can't figure out what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, you're painting a picture that, I mean, that was as an able-bodied kid, right? So imagine having different challenges or disabilities. What kind of, I mean, what do we do?
Roll
You know,
somewhere and brace yourself.
Right.
that's scary.
Right. And everybody's survival is based on how prepared you are. When I talk to people, I get different responses. I get the response that some people don't want to hear it. They don't want to live their life in fear. And the reason they don't want to hear it is because they're already in fear.
Right.
I've had people tell me they have faith, but there's a difference between having faith and being foolish. And if you have faith and you know that the warnings are saying earthquakes are coming, and you know that they're happening in your own life, and you're not prepared, to me that's a little bit on the foolish side. I've had people, and these are people who are professional people. They're attorneys, they're professors, and I mean, I get such a variety of it to the point where I've even had a doctor tell me, I don't want to talk about this. I just don't want to hear it. And at that particular point, I just go, okay. So part of the problem is that people don't have this baseline knowledge of knowing what's happening. And what I do is I provide them with videos, personal experience, and pictures to give them a visual picture of what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
We know it's going to happen. We live in an earthquake zone. And yet we don't act as if we live in an earthquake zone.
That's a good point. I mean, so getting to the guts of it, how do people just start preparing themselves? What are the things that people need to put in place, purchase, plan for? I mean, what do you think is a good start for people?
I think the basic start for everyone is to sort of get out of this denial and look at the reality of the matter of earthquakes, earthquake zone. This is where I live. This is what's happening. It's happening consistently, constantly. We're constantly getting warnings by the people who study the earth. And if we can change our mindset to just that first part, then I think people will begin to sort of do something to prepare. It's an overwhelming proposition, and I understand that. But I also understand that if you do something once a week, once a month towards preparing, either saving water or figuring out your medicines, storing food, if you do anything at all, it's better than not doing anything.
Right.
Because it could be the difference between your survival, your family's survival, and not surviving.
And another challenge we face is our medical supplies. Like our insurance really doesn't cover more than to get by every month. And if something like an earthquake or something huge like that happened, we would be in a very dire situation without being able to, empty our bladders, infections, things of that sort. So that's one thing I always worry about. Insurances, they don't see that. They said, okay, whatever you can use for 30 days is all you get. And that's scary to think about, that we're kind of in that situation, right?
Yeah, you might have to sacrifice a dinner date with your wife and, score some extra catheters to put in that earthquake kit.
Yeah, and
this is where the kits have to be comprised of particular needs, everybody's particular needs. Now, pharmacies and insurance companies are allowing for a 90-day supply of medicines. Now, I think, and this is the difficult part because politicians don't even want to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gone to several politicians, and it's been an uphill battle. So we have to be our own advocates.
Absolutely.
We need a 90-day supply. of medications because there's not going to be any pharmacies. And when the earthquake hit in Anchorage, Alaska, there was no pharmacy that you could go to. The stores were gone. Electricity was non-existent. Gas was non-existent. Running water was non-existent.
Yeah, well, what about like even getting to places? Like, what's transportation like? Because doesn't an earthquake like that actually change the landscape?
This one did. It changed the landscape to the point. My mother wasn't there when the earthquake hit. We didn't see my mother for a day and a half because the landscape had totally changed. It changed the course of a river, and she was using the river to navigate. So she climbed over mountains, rocks, hills to get to us, and we thought she had been killed. And then finally she showed up about a day and a half later, and I mean, we were just ecstatic about it. But you're absolutely right. Bridges will come down, and you can see if you go on YouTube or any of the other stations, you'll see the history of the earthquakes, and you'll see roads collapsed, bridges collapsed. So the other part of the preparation is that you have to have something in your automobile if you're driving around that's going to sustain you for at least 3 days.
Okay.
That means food, water, possibility of change of clothing. In my car, I have all of those items, including a flashlight, light sticks, and I just carry it in my car with me. It's in the back of the trunk.
Lots and lots of extra underwear.
Clothing is important, absolutely. And,
yes, it is.
Snacks, maybe trail mixes, jerky. I mean, something that could last a while. Maybe some canned foods here and there just to even the blow. It's funny you say that because other, all these shows and movies coming up, man. I'm watching all these zombie apocalypse movies and the way they're trying to survive through that series. And I'm like, ooh, I need to start maybe doing my due diligence, not necessarily against zombie apocalypse, but it puts you in the survival state of mind when you see things like that, right?
Yeah, and that's the key to the whole thing is your preparation. And I tell people, they used to say have enough food and water for 3 days, and I go, that's not enough. You need enough for at least 2 weeks. And with water, you need enough water for people for consuming about 1 gallon a day per person. And in the seminar, we talk about where your sources of water are. There's also now products that will also, there's a straw that you can go to a muddy puddle of water and you can extract water out of it. There's technologies now that exist that you can utilize and you can store also. Most food now has a 25-year shelf life. They have non-GMO foods. I think there's even a company that produces kosher foods also. So it's a one-purchase thing, and the price is a little steep, but if it's a one-shot deal and your life is going to depend on it, then you really don't want to
you don't want
something like that.
A chance. Yeah. But all right, so let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more disaster awareness.
This episode has been brought to you by our good friends at Precision Rehabilitation, neural rehab at its finest. For more information, visit them at precisionrehabilitation.com.
Okay, Earl. So we're this is great information. I'm so glad you had the time to stop in and give us some more perspective on what to expect and how to prepare for stuff. One other question that I have is, so when something like this happens, obviously you have to kind of map out, if you live in a house, your evacuation, an evacuation plan. Is that right? Or just kind of find out where your outlets are for in case of fire or earthquakes and things like that?
Yeah, my first suggestion would be that you have to identify the hazards that are in your house already.
Okay.
The example I gave was that these objects were flying around in the earthquake in Anchorage, Alaska, and actually shattering against the wall. It looked like somebody was actually pitching them across the room with force.
Wow.
So things become missiles in earthquakes because the buildings will shift, they will snap back and forth, and that causes things to take a life of their own, so to speak. And they can be they can injure you. Things that huge objects such as bookcases that are not secured or fastened. So probably the first thing to do is to look around and identify the hazards in your own house and see what's not nailed down, not secured. And now fasteners and stuff, I mean, you can buy Velcro relatively cheap at the 99-cent store.
Yeah, but I suggest the good stuff at like Osh Hardware.
Yes. Yeah, well, that if you can afford that, that's absolutely right. Your computers.
And there's another thing too, magnets. Another artist friend of mine, she uses like these very high strength magnets to fasten stuff.
Not a computer though.
No, not your computer.
Okay.
But to stuff to walls, and you can think of all kinds of uses. But they have like 30-pound rated ones, and so think about that.
Yeah, and there's putty now too that you can put on the bottom of things that'll stick it and it'll secure. Anything that you can do, and I understand this is overwhelming for people, but anything that you do like once a week changes your mindset so that you're aware you live in an earthquake zone. And so I usually go to the 99-cent store. I might buy some cheap gauze or whatever it is added to the first aid kit. Anything like that you can pick up, and this changes your mindset. So think that way is the first and the most important step, is realizing where you live and what you need to prepare for. You can also go online, and YouTube's an excellent source for looking at the different types of disasters and seeing how people prepared for it and how they survived.
Okay.
Yeah, you can learn everything on YouTube.
Just about.
Yeah.
Well, be selective because everything's really
Right.
not good, but there's a lot of educational stuff once in a while.
You mean if it's on the internet, it's not true sometimes?
And yeah.
Sometimes.
Sometimes, okay. I think the second thing that people need to do is they need to sit down and make a plan, a family plan. What do you do if the cell phones are not up? You can't text. All of that stuff will more than likely collapse. Probably even landlines, even though landlines they're saying will probably be the last ones to go. But cell towers, when they come down, nothing's going to work unless you have a satellite phone. So anything that relies on the technology that uses another means to connect with is not going to be a reliable source for you.
So maybe some of the radios, crank radios or things of that sort, right?
Right, to generate their own power. There's some solar power stuff that you can buy now, solar panels, relatively inexpensive that you can buy and you can store that will generate your electronic equipment and stuff.
Okay.
That's what I would suggest you do. But more importantly is have a plan with your family and develop what you call a personal support team. If you have neighbors that you live next door to you, get to know them. As long as you get along with them, and talk to them about disaster preparedness, what to do in a disaster. Ask them if they'll come and help you, to check on you, because at least in the first 3 or 4 days, people are more willing to help each other in a disaster, particularly an earthquake. And everyone's going to have to rely on someone else anyway, just across the board. But if you have special needs, then it's even more important that you have people that you can depend on who will agree ahead of time to come in and check on you and to help you out with whatever the needs are. That's the first thing. Get a team together in your mind and talk to them about it and go over the plan.
Okay.
Go over an evacuation plan. If you have to leave, where are you going to leave messages? Pick a place where you agree upon ahead of time that this is where you're going to leave a written message. In a lot of the tsunamis, people left messages on one central board so that everybody would go to the board and they could figure out if their loved ones were safe or what happened to them or where to find them. So we need to do the same thing and have that in mind. That should be part of your written family plan.
Excellent.
The other part of your family plan should be that you should copy every important document that you need. If you purchase a home, you need your deeds, you need the titles of your car, you need insurance information. You need your health information, and you need to have it in one notebook in a central place. So make copies of it, put them in sheet protectors, and keep them in what's called a good bag, and good stands for get out of Dodge. If you have to evacuate, You're not going to have time to assemble all of this stuff. You may not even be able to reach it. You need it in one central location where you can grab a bag and you go and you have everything.
Okay, that's a good good point. Anything else, Rich? You wanna?
Well, there's plenty more. So, but I think we're running tight on time. So
yeah, no, that's we got a few more minutes here. So once the aftermath of something like this happens, I mean, getting yourself together, how do you start putting the pieces back? I mean, for your situation, since it was such a horrific and strong earthquake, what did you learn from it?
Well, there was quite a few things. One of them was that my dad was unprepared, my mother and father. I mean, it was something that is unimaginable. But now we have enough information. I would suggest everybody find out as much as they can about earthquakes and survival. There's an old instruction that no longer applies, and that is when an earthquake starts to get up in the doorway. Well, they don't say that anymore. It's you get under a table to develop a space so that things that are falling from the ceiling don't fall on you, because that's where most of the injuries.
Law of triangulation.
Yeah, they're called void spaces, pretty much. Mm-hmm. So when you develop the void spaces, you're actually developing a pocket of air where you can survive. Most of the survivors that they find throughout the world survive because there's a pocket of space for air for them until people can come and rescue them. So that's one of the things. You can identify void spaces in your house. I do. I have a bookcase and a dresser that's next to my bed, and all I have to do is roll off the bed, and I know that anything that falls from the ceiling is going to be stopped by the bed and the dresser. My bed is not near any windows because we know about glass. Glass will shatter. Mm-hmm. And in an earthquake, particularly if you're in a wheelchair, you lock the wheelchair automatically. You're not going to really go anywhere, and if the earthquake is strong enough, that's even much more of a hazard. Secure yourself up against the wall or something that you can brace yourself to, and then hold on until it's over. If you're in bed, the best thing they say is to cover your head with the pillow and wait it out. Don't try to get out. Don't try to move. Just wait it out. And before you get out of the bed, make sure that there's no broken glass around your bed, because that will further injure you. Yeah. There are two things that happen during an earthquake. One is the primary damage and the destruction, and then there's secondary deaths and destruction that happen to people. And it's because they don't know how to inspect their houses. They go back in, aftershock happens, and then it collapses. Oh. So there's also water purification. I think in the earthquake in Haiti, there was an additional 8,400 people that died from cholera.
Right.
Which is waterborne diseases, because they didn't sanitize the water, the drinking water. They didn't know how.
Or have enough filters or specialized filters.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So that caused secondary deaths. They didn't prepare because they didn't store food and water, so they had to rely on the government or the world to get organized in order to come in. In most cases in LA, if the roads are destroyed, you're going to wait a while before they even rebuild the roads and the airports to fly and to bring anything in. So that's why, again, I'm stressing the importance of self-sufficiency. Mm-hmm. I say 2 weeks, but really, you should have more than that. Mm-hmm. You should be prepared to be on your own for more than 2 weeks.
That could be the difference between life and death, really.
Yeah. And I say start today. Just
Absolutely.
Start today.
Yeah. Do just one thing a week. I mean, just move towards the goal if it's overwhelming for you. And you can go on our website too, and you can order products that are already there. I put together my own Get Out of Dodge bag, and it was more expensive to do it that way. But I had everything in it. I did it over time. Every time I got a check, I did something. And if you want to give a gift to somebody for their birthday or whatever the occasion may be, give them something that's going to help them survive. Give their family something that's going to help them survive.
Yeah, because my birthday's coming up.
Okay. Well, we'll put that on the list.
Yeah, so Yeah, put that on the list.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. So as we get to closing, Earl, is there anything else you want to share with our community? Maybe a website or more contact information that they could reach out?
There's a list of websites you can go on, but our website is www.disasterawarenessproject.com. For more information about what to do and how to prepare, there's a series of websites. There's one that's www.earthquakecountry.org, and I think it's /prepare. And I mean, I've got like 8 different types of websites that you can go to, and I'm sure that.
Yeah, I'll put them all in the description below.
Right. And, we just barely touched on.
Scratch the surface?
Oh, yeah. We just barely scratched the surface. So perhaps at another time we can go into more depth, or if your audience and listeners have any more questions, perhaps then they can email
drop
you
us
guys.
a comment. Yeah, drop us a comment if you have anything specific you want to know, or, something that we can't remember when we're discussing this. It's helpful.
Or a disaster preparedness topic, we could get more detailed, layered of information in there.
Right, because there's also a lot more things on food preparedness, how to inspect your home, water filtration systems, and water sources like your hot water tank. That could be a water source, the back tank of your toilet, provided you don't have the little tidy bowl guy in there.
Mm-hmm.
And also preparedness for pets, which is what we didn't even touch on.
Yeah.
Because if you're not prepared for your pets, you may become part of his food chain.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Earl, for stopping in and sharing all this great information. It's an eye opener for all of us, and this is something we need to put in motion to start putting together that disaster kit or first aid kit for us to survive something catastrophic like an earthquake. So we thank you very much. Any particular email or contact info that you want to share in case they have any questions? Or
they can just contact you through your site or however.
Yeah, there's also a more personal email. It's EARLMASSEY323@gmail.com. And hopefully I'll be doing a lot more work with the special needs communities. This is something that I really believe is for everybody, and it needs to be tailored for specific audiences and groups of folks if it's really going to be for everybody.
Right.
And survival is for everybody.
It's universal.
Right. Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you. And we want to thank our audience once again for being with us and sitting in on these great topics. Please, if you haven't done so, please subscribe, comment, and like us and all that fun stuff. But we'll keep bringing you guys more interviews and everything related to disabilities and resources, because that's one of the things that'll help us stay independent, safe, and become very
productive in our society.
In our community.
Can I add one more thing?
Sure.
These seminars are visual. If you want to request a seminar in the email address I gave you, I'm willing to do the seminars for groups of people. So if you're interested, you can also call 323-674-1372, and you can make arrangements for groups of people. The visual stimulation and then hearing the facts is a lot more powerful and a lot more motivating. And there's two separate seminars, so you can call and find out more, and I'll be more than happy to make arrangements with you.
Great.
Thank
Awesome.
you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Earl.
All right, and we'll see you later. We'll
Thank
have you
you.
back.
Okay, that would
All
be
right.
great. I
Sure.
appreciate it.
See you next time.
All right, bye, everyone.
Bye.
We want to thank Maker City LA for allowing us the opportunity to create these podcasts. For more information, visit them at makercityla.com.